Hey, Run Junkies, you probably have heard me talk a little bit about my coach, Christine Hinton, who has guided me on my journey for the last year and a half as I've achieved Dopey Challenge finishes, and I'm currently working toward a PR, and she's helping me out with that. But I thought it would be great to have her on and answer your questions about injury and coming back from surgery and injury and things like that, as well as talk about some of the questions that you guys have. So here she is, Coach Christine Hinton. So, hey everybody, this is Running with Grace, and today I have my amazing coach, Christine Hinton. You've probably heard me talk about her quite a few times. Christine's helped me get through the Dopey Challenge in the last year, and now she's helping me get to hopefully a PR on the half marathon. But welcome, Christine. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I love being here with you.
This is a fun kind of format where we get to I can ask questions of someone who knows a lot more than I do about some of these running questions.
Oh no, you're catching up. You're catching up.
I tell you what though, so here's the thing.
Certified now?
That's the crazy thing. Like after I took that class, I'm like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? And so now I'm just sitting here and I'm reading all of this information and I'm going through like, okay, now I think I know what Christine is doing when she's planning these months. And I'm still like, I could go look it up, but frankly,
that too. You can do that too.
It was a lot of information, and I'm still 4 months later, I'm still processing it. And it's what?
They hit you hard with a lot.
They really did. It was death by PowerPoint.
Yeah. Oh.
It was okay. Whoa, there's a lot here. There's a lot of information here. So, but Christine, tell me a little bit remind everybody what your background is as a runner, as a coach, and maybe a little bit of what you're going through right now.
Sure. So I've been a runner pretty much my entire life. Grew up in a running family. Ran high school, ran collegiately. Upon graduating from college, ran locally for our little regional team down in North Carolina. It was a lot of fun. And that's when I started getting into coaching. Coaching the high school locally there, and then slowly just kind of started splintering out into a bunch of different things with coaching adults, coaching groups, writing for publications, becoming part of Another Mother Runner for a little while, stuff like that. So, and now I'm coaching back to school, but I'm doing middle school.
Okay. Whoa.
So I'll be entering my third year of coaching middle school, which is interesting. it's kind of fun, funny. A lot.
Do you get like the whole gamut of emotions in a single day?
Pretty much. They like to have fun, so that's good because they're much more lighter about everything. Most of them, there's usually like one or two that are serious. Where high school, there tends to be larger groups of this. So we do have a lot of fun, and you got to be more creative. Like in high school, you can just say, okay, today we're doing 7 miles, tomorrow we're doing tempo runs. You can't really have a 11 or 12-year-old out for, a mile tempo run, right. And you call it that, it's boring. So I have to be very creative with how we do things, especially like intervals and stuff. Like one time I had, and this is probably way off topic now, but
it's helpful.
I went to the dollar store and got a bunch of different puzzles. And we divided, and we have a large group. When we divided up into relay groups, and you had to sprint. I don't remember how, I think it was like a quarter of a mile, it was like total of like a quarter of a mile. And when they came back, you picked one piece out of the puzzle and you put it down. And the next person would go. So the goal was everybody had to do intervals when you got back. So it was to build whoever built the puzzle the fastest. So you have to get,
How fun though. What a great idea.
High schoolers if I ever coach high school again. But just to make it fun. So they're running fast and they don't really realize that they're also working out, so.
Right.
But anyway, and so now I work at a middle school, so that's why I'm coaching the middle school as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So that's about it.
Neat.
Oh yeah, and I'm not running a whole lot right now myself.
Right, and I can cut this out if you like. But do you want to talk at all about what's going on?
I know it might segue into what.
Yeah.
I want to talk. So yeah. I've had back issues for a while. Spine, I should say, because it's even in my cervical spine.
Right.
Long story short, over about a year and a half ago, it started getting really bad, particularly after I ran my last ultra. After that, I couldn't, I'd planned on doing a marathon a couple months later, and I couldn't get back on track because my back was just so painful. Right. And finally, you know, after going through a bunch of stuff, got the MRI, you know, which always takes like, you know,
yeah,
super long time. They want you to do all this other stuff first. I'm like, just take a picture. And so it showed in my lumbar, I've got one area that's completely, pretty much the disc is almost completely gone. I think I have like 10% disc left.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's bone on bone. So bone edema. And I think that's primarily where the source of my pain is, in my low back. And then I've got another disc that's like not looking great, but it's not completely down. So then more recently, I started having some nerve, like I'm like dropping stuff with like my left hand.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, at first I'm like, what's going on? And then I remembered a long time ago, I had gotten a neck MRI, and there was some early signs of things, probably like 12 years ago when Thomas was little. I remember I was holding him and it would hurt. Huh. And I'm starting to have nerve stuff. And I'm like, but it didn't hurt. So I went and checked, and my neck is like all jacked up.
Oh no.
I've got like 4 or 5 discs that are like completely messed up. My whole spine is like kind of tilted. I've got like arthritis. I've got spinal stenosis. I've got, you know, compressed nerves, which is what's going on here. So, you know, at first they said, obviously no running.
Yeah.
And so over the last year, and that's how I initially got involved with the TRX program, was because I needed to build my core strength.
Right.
Because I would take a step and I would like, it would be awful. It was horrible pain. So core strength, that's one thing I will always tell everyone they need to do is have a solid core strength. Even if you don't have back problems, the change in my body and how I can deal with the pain in my back is infinitely better now that I have a stronger core. So, okay. You know, yeah. So even if you don't have back issues, just doing stuff that challenges your core areas, I think is really good. So right now I'm kind of in the process of seeing some doctors, trying to figure out what to do. I'm trying very hard to try different activities and stuff to hopefully avoid or at least put off surgery, because it doesn't sound like, yeah. They go in from the front.
Oh my word.
I watched a surgery. You can find anything on YouTube. I'm like, you know, spinal stenosis, disc surgery, you know, replacement. And I was like, oh. No. Oh, that really motivated me to try to not have surgery. Yeah, so I tried hot yoga today, Bikram yoga.
You were telling me about this. So, yeah, good, bad?
Have you done it?
I know.
Okay,
no,
so it's hard in like a weird way. So like running, like it's so hot. It's hot. I mean, it's really, the room got up to like 105, I think. You're in there for an hour and a half, and you're doing fairly challenging moves, you know, just yoga moves, and you go through them each of the moves a few times. There's like a few balance moves, strength moves, but they're made infinitely more difficult because you're in a room that's 105, you're dripping sweat.
Okay.
But it's supposed to be really, really good for your bones and your joints. It's supposed to really bring, as you move your spine and stuff, bring, I guess, what it needs to the area.
Right.
That was very technical way of
describing it. That's really interesting because I've heard of it like the warmth helps kind of loosen your muscles up, yeah. But it would almost sound like it's so hot I can't stand.
It was hard, but they say after you do it a few times, you kind of get used to the warm. Like after, I was good for an hour. Once we started getting to that last half hour, we were doing where I was like looking up and I was like, oh, I started feeling a little dizzy.
Here.
But they said that's all normal, and that, you know, that you just need to go a lot.
Okay.
But, you know, and I'm not a yoga person, and I know as far as injuries, yoga is always a great thing to do. And I know you're doing regular yoga now.
I am. And it's funny because, you know, we were talking about, you know, moving scuba tanks around and having to lift all of this stuff. And that's how, you know, and you're kind of advocating having core strength. It's like, that's when I'm teaching a class like that, that's when I notice, oh, I haven't been doing any core work whatsoever. You know, I wake up and my back is just achy and sore, and it's like, no, I've got to get back into this, but I don't want to go into the gym and
Yes.
start working out super, super hard. And you and I, we talked about how the TRX was almost like too much.
Yeah.
Of those planks and, you know, planks on the TRX and all of that stuff. That stuff is hard. And it got to the point where I couldn't hold a plank, like my lower back was so weak.
Yeah.
And so I thought, okay, well, we'll go into yoga and start there and feel like I can build some kind of core base.
Yes.
Before I go into May and start myself a new challenge and do something equally, you know, foreign to me. You know,
those things are fun though. They're fun.
Yes.
They challenge you. I'm a big believer in trying to do different things. And I know you're like that too. And I like that about you. Like, I'll be like, hey, try this. And you're like, all right.
Okay, it's something else. That's good because I'm bored. So.
Yeah, but it keeps your body guessing, and that's what keeps you fit. You know, and that's, you know, when you're running, and believe me, I was a mild junkie. Like, if I had time in the day, I wanted to be running. I didn't want to be doing anything else. I didn't want to be working on upper body. I didn't want to be working on core. But now, as I'm getting older and obviously having some issues, I think having that solid foundation of a good, strong core and upper body, and runners forget that their upper body is really important too.
Yeah.
In overall fitness, as well as just, especially if you're a longer distance runner, just being able to open your lungs up and hold yourself in a proper posture.
And just the arm swing. I mean, when you're doing this forever, and when you start to bunch up like this, it's like,
yeah, you need to be able to relax, keep your lungs open, keep your arms relaxed, and your legs go with your arms. You know, like when you're pumping up a hill, it's you know, it's your arms that are keeping the momentum as you're bounding gracefully.
Which, you know, I have to ask the question, like I'm watching and I can never remember his name when I need to, the Japanese winner of the Boston Marathon.
Yes.
He had a really low arm swing.
He had an interesting style of running. Yeah.
Yeah. I was totally tangent, but I'm just like, what?
Yeah, no, I looked at him too. I didn't think a whole lot about it, but I remember looking at it thinking, hey, he runs kind of funny. Mm-hmm. But it looked very compact and
it worked.
Yeah, apparently. I got my Boston shirt on, so.
I know. It's like.
Yeah, that was a crazy race. Talk about a crazy race.
Oh my goodness. And I'm totally like, I'm off on a tangent, but I wanted to ask you, so is there a return to running for you, or is that just kind of?
Not now. So I do try to go out every couple of weeks. I'll try to go out, and my aerobic fitness is decent because I'm still doing aerobic stuff. So I can go out and run. Okay. 5-6 miles, but I pay for it the next day.
Oh.
And I'm not supposed to, but for my own sanity, just every once in a while, you know.
You know, I don't care. It'll hurt tomorrow. I've got Advil. I'm good. Just go do this.
Yeah. So, but otherwise, I'm just doing other things. I'm actually working a lot, like on strength, overall strength, and the stuff that I can do with my back, and then riding my bike, and now the hot yoga. So I'm staying active. Just not with the thing I love.
Miles and miles and miles and miles. It's like, I gotta go. I'll see you later. This is gonna be me.
I miss this. Going out for a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's okay. That's all right.
But good. But so you're still able to run whether or not you should.
Correct.
I won't tell anybody. Okay.
Don't tell anybody.
Guys.
On the road.
But that's kind of, you know, it was one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because some of my near and dear friends here that watch me on the channel that I've met in person, which is amazing, have recently either been injured or have had a planned surgery and are trying to figure out how to get back to running. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just as much of a physical thing, because you do need to take it slow, but there's also a mental and emotional thing that you were alluding to. It's like, if I don't go running, I will go nuts.
Yeah.
So can you kind of, what is the process when you know you have a major setback like that, whether you know it's coming or it's accidental?
Right. Well, I think I don't want to say it's worse, but it's probably harder mentally to deal with if it's like an accidental thing, you know? Mm-hmm. or something like you've been having pain and then you go to the doctor and you've got a stress fracture versus, you've got a planned surgery. You can kind of maybe work around and have a plan of what you're going to be doing afterwards, talk to your doctor. When can I work out? It's almost like when you have a baby, like, when can I start working out again? Okay, well, in 4 weeks. So you kind of know, how long you're going to have to wait and try to keep yourself sane.
Right.
But either way, I like to do just like a little itty bitty little test run. First cleared to run. And you have to listen to your doctor. And doctors a lot of times can be overly conservative. But that's probably not a bad thing because you want to make sure that you're fully healed from whatever you had going on or fully recovered before you try to go out and run again. And then when you do, you can't just pick up where you were 2 months ago or 6 weeks ago, which I know most people want to do. You have lost fitness, period. Even if you do other things, you've lost the running specific fitness.
Right.
Maybe not as much if you were able to bike and swim. Maybe it wasn't as big of a hit to your fitness, but you're still going to have some adjustments again with the running. The good news is if you won't be starting completely over again. I always tell that to people if they took even like a year off. When you come back, your body kind of has this muscle memory where it's like, I remember doing that before.
I remember how much this sucked before. Let's get back to that.
So your body starts to remember. So you won't be starting over like a completely newbie beginner runner. Right. It'll be a shorter kind of breaking in period for you. Okay. But that said, you have to go super duper easy, and that's going to be individual person to person. But most people, I say, go out for 20, 30, 40 minutes, depending on, where you are in your, how you trained before. Super easy, no expectations, maybe not even wear a watch, and just go see how you feel. Feel it out. Then wait a day. How do you feel the next day? How are you recovering? Is wherever you were injured or hurt or surgery site, is that bothering you? Do you notice anything weird? If not, then go again the next day. And for a week, you do 3 or 4 little test runs. You have to be very careful with keeping it easy, and then also just assessing afterwards how you handled it and how your body handled the run. Right. And then from there, then you can start slowly picking it back up again. But it has to be a process of, depending on how long you were off. Usually they say, so if you were off 4 weeks, you would have spent at least 4 weeks, 5, 6 weeks, at least the time you were down, plus probably another half of that, trying to get back up to top.
Okay.
Running again. But slow, be ultra conservative. I know people want to dive in, but then they get hurt again.
Yeah. You mentioned expectations and not wearing a watch. And I think, I don't dare say it, I've never really been so injured.
Yeah.
Here I am a month out from my race. Yeah. So injured that has compromised my fitness for long months at a time. I think the most I came down, I had a foot strain, and it was fine after a few weeks, and I was able to get back to it. But my friend Laura, you've met Laura, she had a plantar plate tear, and she was down for 10 months. And so she made this decision, I believe completely on her own, just said, you know what, I am resetting all of my records in Garmin. I am not going to go by what I was doing before. And, and I think you get that expectation out of the way, and you just stop looking at the numbers, at least for a little while, until you're back into that fitness.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. I love the idea of just kind of starting fresh, giving yourself a fresh, especially after 10 months. 10 months, that's a long time. That's going to be a long, she's going to have to take that probably a year to get kind of back into a full groove of training again. But I like your idea of that. And that actually holds true even as we just get older. We're not going to be chasing our all-time PRs for the rest of it's not going to work.
If I had been running at 18, which I wasn't, I don't think I could beat myself at 18.
So I feel like I remember someone reading that like every age group, they kind of like what you said, Laura, to kind of wipe it clean and you start fresh.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
In that 5-year increment. And then once you hit it and you go to the next age group, you wipe it fresh again.
Cool. I'm about to age up.
Yeah. Yeah. You get to wipe the slate clean.
Completely clean.
Yes,
we had this conversation in a live show recently about whether or not I would ever do Boston. And I'm like, well, I could if I look at the numbers from the next age group. And I could start working for that now, but I'm still talking, taking more than an hour off of my current marathon time. My best marathon time, which was 3 years ago, because I just did my worst marathon time, but that was on purpose. So.
Yeah, that doesn't count. So, well, I was reading an article where they're thinking about, apparently there's a discrepancy when you do in the Boston qualifying times with the ages as you get older. They're saying it doesn't, like, the age graded doesn't work out right. So they think that some of the older women's ages should actually be a little bit slower. So I thought, maybe you and I will be the 80-year-olds. We finally made it to Boston.
That'd be awesome. That would be great. So, yeah, it's that mental piece of it, and I think aging up helps. But so like coming back when you know it's something, like I guess the difference between the accident or like a really good example would be a mom who is planning on a natural birth, but then has to go in for emergency C-section. It's like, that's a catastrophic failure basically of the abdominal muscles and all of that. And you really have to take care to come back from that, and forget the pregnancy. I mean, that's part of it, but then you also have a major surgery to come back from.
I mean, when something like that happens, obviously your overall health and recovery has got to take precedence over any type of working out.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're, that type A runner that has to get that, kick of cardio, just always ask your doctor. There's lots of times I'll tell people, well, what would your doctor say? Well, I don't know. And I'm like, well, ask. If I can do something, and what is it that I can do? Even if it's just going up and down your stairs, or just starting to go for a walk, which is a great base to getting back to running again, or maybe getting on a recumbent bike, or if it's not a surgery related, maybe getting in the pool, maybe jogging. There's lots of things that an injured runner can do. Obviously not what we want to do, but it'll get you back to what you want to do if you take your time. And in the process, I find it actually helps you develop muscles and strength in areas that running often neglects. So, maybe taking the opportunity when you are injured or in surgery, maybe focusing on a different part of your body. Maybe you've never done upper body stuff. You've got, I don't know, a sore knee or something. Maybe you get a bench and you start doing some, workout with the dumbbells or something, something that you can do that maybe focuses on a different part of your body that then you can incorporate and keep in your running routine, and then being all over better.
It just becomes a part of it. Yeah. That makes sense. Makes sense. So that's a lot of, it's funny because I've had a lot of people ask this question. What about, and there was another question that somebody had asked, this gentleman, Esteban, I love that name.
I used to know an Esteban, actually. That's funny.
I just know the one that watches my channel. So he asked, he broke his foot a few years ago. And it took him a while to get back, but it seems no matter what I do, my pace in a 5K, his 5K time can't get under 25 minutes. Any tips on running faster? But he has no problem running long distance. He thinks he's just kind of a slow pace runner. And I asked him, I'm like, so just to clarify, you're running 9:30, 10-minute miles. He's like, yeah, it's just breaking that 25-minute mark, I think is what.
Does he say how old he is?
I did not ask. But.
Yeah. So any training program, whether you're training for a 5K or a marathon, has the same like essential items in the mix. But what you pay more attention to, or what you, where the heavier end of the training is going to be different. Mm-hmm. So in any training plan, you're going to have, you know, some speed work, some anaerobic type stuff, some VO2 max stuff, some tempo stuff, some long run stuff. For a marathon, you're going to focus on probably long run, tempo, you know, that sort of thing. Half marathon, a lot of tempo type running, race pace type running. Right. Once you start getting down into the 5K, the long distance stuff doesn't really matter anymore. You don't need it. That said, you still should very probably, you know, run anywhere from 5 to 8 mile long runs on the weekends. But he doesn't need to be going up to
15, 20 minutes. Yeah.
At that point, unless he wants to. It doesn't hurt you, but you don't need it. Where your time is better spent is doing the shorter interval stuff. Or even the longer interval stuff at race pace. One of my favorite workouts that I like to do for the 5K, or used to like to do, two actually, is one is you do 1K, 1,000 meters.
Okay.
So you would work up to doing 5 1K repeats at your race pace, your goal race pace.
Okay.
But actually, before you go to goal race, you want to try to accomplish that at your current, and then you start incorporating what your goal is. So, and you have to be realistic. If he's running, would you say it was 25?
Yeah.
So if he's break 25, so you don't want your goal pace to suddenly be like 8-minute miles or something like that. You don't want to make a huge jump. You want to keep it in a reasonable range. And a way that you can figure that out is he can take not old race times, but try to get a race time within a year, 9 months, something like that. And he can plug it into a calculator like McMillan's calculator, running calculator, or he can do a 1 mile time trial type test and plug that into if he hasn't run a race recently, and plug that into the calculator. And that will help guide him into what possibly he could expect his body is capable of running at the 5K distance. And then he can shape his training around that.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I would start with maybe for him is, maybe if he's not accustomed to doing interval type stuff, is maybe just start doing some shorter stuff initially. Maybe getting on a track and running, kind of like what we did in high school, where you run the straights and jog the turns, something like that for a mile, and slowly try to wake up his fast twitch muscles. He may be someone that maybe has more slow twitch muscles, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But that's part of his issue, is he just doesn't have the fast twitch muscles, or he just needs to train in a different way. I also love doing mile repeats. That's a harder one.
Yeah. Those are hard.
working up to doing 3 1 mile repeats at your race pace is such a huge mental boost. Yeah. Knowing that you can do it, even though you're getting a break in between, maybe like a quarter of a mile, really slow, and you get that break, still knowing that you can do it for 3 miles is a huge mental boost going into the race. So short, fast stuff up to a mile intervals at race pace. But he has to make sure that he trains at his current fitness, but he can start to incorporate what his goal pace is. So if he wants to run 24 something, but again, keep it reasonable. Don't expect it to do. And you never know. Sometimes it's better always to be a little undertrained than overtrained. So he may show up race day and, blow his pace out of the water and run a whole lot faster, but we don't want to train there, because that you're on that line of injury if you start to overtrain or run too fast. Okay. So you can probably do it. So for example, if 9:30s are his pace, or 9, running 3 miles at 9-minute mile pace with rest in between is probably not a big deal. Right. But let's say now he jumps it down to 8, maybe he can still do it, but now we've kind of taxed him beyond what he can reasonably recover from in a reasonable amount of time. And if you keep doing that, pushing yourself too much, then you're over that line, and you can get either overtrained or you can become injured. So we don't want that to happen.
I like to think of it like that's the shovel that's digging the overtraining hole.
Yeah. And it's a fine line. And that's one of the hard things about coaching, is you want to push people right up to that line, but you don't want to go over it.
Right. And how do you know what that line is? when, like, I mean, this relationship here, it's an email a week, right? And it's like, I have to be honest with you, so you can say, oh, okay, well, let's look at this and say. So it's kind of like when
you're not with you right now with the half marathon, trying to discern do we have a pace that's still right now reasonable for you?
Yeah. And I mean, that's, to be perfectly frank, I've been questioning that ever since I said,
but we've got some different
and said, okay, so let's do some 940 miles. I'm like, okay, Christine.
Sure. But I mean, that's part of the process of it. And pushing yourself and having big goals is good, but you also want to make sure they're reasonable. Otherwise, you're always going to be pushing for something you're never going to attain, and that's no fun.
Right.
And speed is relative, everybody's different.
Everybody's different, and it's, again, we're coming back to that age thing. It's like, I'm not going to be running at 25. It's highly unlikely. I'll say it this way. It's highly unlikely I'll be running a 25-minute 5K personally, even though my Garmin says that I can. You mentioned something about plugging it into a pace calculator and that 1 mile kind of test run.
Yes.
This is interesting because I just shot a video like just this morning about how to determine your pace.
Yes.
And, what is a good training pace for you? I like to call it my run all day pace. What is a good way to determine that when you don't have a bunch of, science equipment to plug into and a treadmill and doctors and all of that?
Right. So you're saying if they don't have like a race time or something, or
I see it a lot with like new runners, and I'm sure you do too. Like, how fast should I even be running?
Okay. So if I have I can approach this 2 different ways. If I have a newer runner and they are asking me these things, I do all by effort. I think effort should be the way probably most of us should be running.
Because perceived exertion kind of thing.
Yes, because always looking at your watch and always going by that pace is not going to take into account what your body's got going on that day. Maybe you didn't sleep well. Maybe you're stressed out. Maybe you didn't eat well last night. Maybe you're dehydrated a little bit. So suddenly your easy pace is going to feel a lot harder because, you had a couple beers and burgers last night or something,
Right.
Little things like that can affect your heart rate, your respiratory rate, especially women around our cycle. It's much harder as we get closer to the end of our cycle. Our respiratory rate increases, so easier runs feel harder. So there's all kinds of things that can go into it. So I don't want people to become a slave to the paces, and that's why I always try to give a range. So I don't say easy pace is 10:30. I'll say, okay, easy pace is 10:30 to 12:30.
Right.
So that takes into account that, our body's going to shift day to day. And, we're not professional runners. We got a life. So we got other stuff going on.
We don't have to. We're not being paid to hit that pace every day.
So, so I like to describe how each run is supposed to feel. What each run is supposed to feel, like the talk test, and which I'm sure, I know you're familiar with.
Yeah.
But being able to have a conversation, conversational pace is what easy runs are usually called. So even if you had a neighbor, if you're running with your neighbor, then you would have a full-on conversation without any difficulty. Tempo pace, you maybe can say a word or two, but that's about it because you're breathing more heavily. Long runs should typically be at a conversational pace, but probably towards the end of your long run, you don't feel much like talking, things like that.
I really just want to get to that bench. Okay, now I want to get to that sign. Okay, now I want to start playing the game.
So so there's different ways of describing it. So if I have a brand new runner, that's typically what I'll do. If I've got a runner that's coming in, maybe this kind of can actually connect to the injury stuff. Maybe they've been off for 10 months and they're back and they're like, I'm a runner. I've got a race from before I was injured. What do I do now? What I might do with them, assuming that they've been running for a little bit, is do kind of like a mile. There's like a magic mile time trial that
Galloway, right?
Galloway does.
Yeah. Okay.
And so he actually has a website about it too, and you can plug it in there too. I don't do the math anymore. I used to, when I coached in my earlier days, I did all the math, you know. Now I'm like, there's so many calculators out there, I might as well use those.
And they're all different. And it's so funny. I find that a lot of them are different. And you were mentioning not becoming a slave to the pace. It's like, okay, well, if I plug my numbers into this one, I should be doing a 4-hour marathon. Well, if I plug it into this one, it says 4:15.
So the predictor things versus the paces is a little bit different. So the predictors, yes, can vary. But I like McMillan's is my favorite.
Okay.
But what you have to realize is that, okay, so let's say you run a 5K in whatever, 25 minutes, and it tells you you can do a 4-hour marathon. That assumes that you do great training, nothing goes wrong, you know, you don't get injured, you hit all your long runs, you hit all your paces, you get to marathon day, it's a perfect day, the weather's awesome, the course is beautiful. So it's kind of like, it's a prediction of what is possible if everything goes beautifully.
If the planets align and everything's perfect.
Yeah.
But we all know.
Right. Most likely, you know, that's not the case.
Something goes wrong.
but when you start doing, so now let's say you do a half marathon.
Okay.
And, you know, 1:55, and it tells you you can do a marathon in 4 hours. Now I would say, you know what, I'm starting to believe that 4 hours is even more possible now, because you've got a longer race that's giving you your prediction.
Right.
So further, a 5K to a marathon predictions, that starts to get to be a pretty big stretch, because your body might be more built for faster, you know, quick stuff versus the slower, longer stuff. So anyway, that's, I'm like going off on a tangent.
Well, no, because it kind of speaks to what is kind of a theme, actually. And like I said, I just did, how do you determine your pace? And then I'm actually on Tuesday, I'm going to be doing you know, how to read a pace calculator, how to plug that information in.
That'll be perfect, because, and those are great tools. And again, I love McMillan. I think he's a great coach. He's someone that I've always read his books. I know him sort of, I've talked to him and stuff like that.
Nice.
I know him sort of, tell him I said, hey, but his stuff is good. And his calculator has always worked pretty well with me. But I do like the Magic Mile. And that's where I would take a runner that maybe is coming back from an injury, that doesn't have a race, maybe isn't ready to race, but maybe has been training for a few weeks. And, you know, we kind of want to see that where that baseline fitness mark is. Okay. And same thing, you just take that mile time, you run it like a race, and then you plug it in, and then it can give you some guides on, but you know, you got to remember, you can't run a 1 mile time trial and get a good prediction for the marathon.
Right. Exactly. It's a place to start, so you can then adapt your paces across all of your workouts. So walk me through what exactly is a Magic Mile. I don't know that I've ever done one. I know a lot of people do, and I'll have a lot of Run Disney folks here that follow Galloway.
Yes. Yes.
So walk me through
his whole own, people. He's awesome too. He's great.
He's amazing. Yes, absolutely.
And I love all of his program stuff. Works great for a lot of people. I actually had a friend, this is years ago now, gosh, probably 15 years ago. She didn't train Galloway, but when we both ran the Marine Corps Marathon, and she's super fast. She was like trying to run like a 3:20 or something like that. They had a Galloway pace group for the 3:20s, and they stopped for like 30 seconds every like couple of miles or something. And she said it was the best thing ever. And she still ran like a 3:20. I was like, and that's maybe there's something to this Galloway thing, because everyone thinks slow, lots of walking, but it can actually be adapted to faster times as well. So,
right.
But, so his mile time trial, it's like nothing really all that fancy or complicated. You go out on a track, warm up, you run like you would a mile race, but you don't want to go out too crazy. I mean, it's again like pacing, like you do in any race. Right. Kind of start more conservatively, but you want to make sure on that last lap you put it all out there. You want to really finish feeling like you have put everything out there that day, and that's all you had. And then you plug it into his little magic calculator, and
it is very much magic.
Lots of magic. I know, that was
great. It's perfect. Okay, so it's like you're leaving nothing out there, but you do have to, because it is a full mile and you're going 4 times around the track.
A mile is that's a hard distance to run. I'd rather run a marathon.
I can run all day.
Yeah, running fast hurts, man. It does. Yeah, it's hard. Running fast is hard. I tell you, I've run some 5Ks that were more painful than marathons I've run. It's hard because you're taking your body to that, VO2 max you're running at 95% effort for a good chunk of time. That's painful. So that's what you're doing for the mile. And it is hard, but it gives you, it's a way to, the other alternative, I guess, is if you're fit enough and ready enough, you could stage your own little 5K or something. If you want to try to but you'll never run as fast on your own as you will.
Because you have race day adrenaline and all of that.
Yeah,
it's so different when you get the crowd around you and the DJ's going and people are yelling and screaming and dressing up and all of that crazy stuff.
Makes you, yes, and sometimes it makes us go out way too fast.
I don't know what that is. I've never done that.
Yeah. Well, apparently it does work if you're the Japanese guy that won Boston, whose name I still can't pronounce either.
Well, I just can't remember it. Like I'm trying to remember it. Now I'm like, can't remember the guy's name. So congratulations. Cool Boston winners.
That's awful.
So yeah. But that was, there was one question, because now we're talking about, now that Star Wars Run Disney is over, people are looking at the Disneyland Paris half marathon weekend. And I know a lot of people who are headed that direction. It's amazing what happens when they cancel all the California races. People just go everywhere and they're always going down to Walt Disney World, and I'm very jealous of them. But a lot of people are asking about how to maybe plan for and prepare for a race internationally. If there are any special considerations and things like that to think about when you're heading.
The first one that comes to mind is food. You need to make sure that whatever country you're going to, like, France might not be that bad because they've got baguettes and
bread and cheese.
But if you're doing something in like Mexico or South America or something where the food's really different, or maybe you're doing the Great Wall race or something like that, and you're going so something like that, you definitely want to keep in mind food. And I personally would bring a lot of my own food. So that might be like stuff that's easy. Maybe you bring oatmeal, little packets of oatmeals. Maybe you bring some bagels. Obviously you can't carry produce and stuff like that, but some dried goods, Cliff Bars, maybe something like that your body's already kind of used to, because that could wreak havoc on you if you eat something, even if it's fine, just your digestive system having something that's completely different. I've heard so many horror stories about people going overseas somewhere, running a race, and then having digestive issues just because they weren't used to the food.
It's bad enough when you do everything right and you still have that problem.
Yes. So a lot of athletes will bring their own food.
Okay. And I would think specifically race day nutrition.
Yes.
If you're
after the race, go exploring.
Go down.
Yeah. Go eat whatever you want. But before the race, I would stick to a blander diet food that you're bringing yourself.
What about like airline travel when you're stuck on an airplane for hours and then jet lag? Yeah.
And that's a bummer. And hydration too, just from flying and traveling. You have to just stay really, really on top of your hydration when you're flying, save the cocktails for the flight back, and make sure that you're just always got some water and maybe something with some electrolytes in it too. I know now they make products with water, because it used to be like Gatorade, you have to drink Gatorade or sports drink, but that's got so much sugar in it. Now I've seen lately they've got water, but it has electrolytes in it, and it's calorie free. So that's always a good option, just to make sure that, especially if you're doing a marathon or something, that you're keeping your salt levels up as well. And then, you know, on the way there, you just have to stay off your feet as much as you can, which I know is hard. And I know anytime I've traveled somewhere, you get excited, go to the expo, and all of a sudden you've been on your feet for, you know, 6 hours and then running the race, you're like, oh. So trying to stay off your feet and trying to maintain some calmness for the travel, not letting any kind of delays or anything set you off, making sure, you know, maybe writing, I like to write down everything, exactly like what I need to bring, what the possible weather conditions might be, what the range of possibilities might be, what you need to bring for that. And sometimes I know some runners will take, depending on when the race is and their travels, will take a little carry-on with their essential running stuff. God forbid something gets lost or doesn't make it. You at least got like your running shoes and your shorts and your shirt or something like that.
Right.
And then when you come back, probably one of the bigger things you need to remember is especially if you did a longer race, is you need to be careful when you're flying with the clots and all that kind of stuff. So maybe wearing some compression, just wearing like maybe some tighter compression type leggings or socks. Okay. And then getting up and moving around every couple of hours if it's a longer flight.
Because that can be, I mean, it's one thing to, you know, from here from Denver to Florida, it's a 4-hour flight. And I have noticed coming back, if I'm not paying attention, I go to stand up and, I can't.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, even if, you know, if you can get the bulkhead, sit in the bulkhead or sit in an aisle, just so you can at least stretch out your legs every now and then and move around, not just sit still too much. I mean, you might not make your neighbor happy, your seatmate, but
why it's actually nice that my son is still pretty small and I can invade his
stick a foot over there.
I'm just gonna use my feet. I'm gonna put them over here, honey.
Perfect. He's like, great.
And then, so it's only gonna work for another year or two, I think.
I know. My son now, well, he's 14 and he's taller than us.
Oh,
yeah, he's super tall. It's crazy.
You guys just had a lovely cruise.
We did, and that was fun. And I ran on the ship.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, you want to know what the funniest thing was? Is I wore my Garmin, and it didn't occur to me, but I'm like running it, and all of a sudden, like 4 minutes in, it beeps that I finished a mile. And I'm like, because I was on a moving ship.
I love it. That is awesome.
I finished, and my Garmin's like, fastest mile, fastest 5, fastest.
You're like, do I save it as a record? What do I do?
I don't know, international waters record.
There you go. There you go.
Oh, that was funny though. It was
That's great.
I wish I'd be marathon Olympian.
Well, and I'd been running on a cruise or walking or something on a cruise 100 years ago now, and it's like the boat shifts just a little bit. You're like, oh, okay, I didn't trip. I didn't. That was the boat that moved.
That was the boat's fault. And the wind, the track's always up, you know, on the highest thing, so the wind was great. But I had to do it. And I was not the only one. So I actually ended up meeting a lady. We were running together, and it was
fun.
Yeah, so it was fun.
And happy belated birthday. I know you had a birthday last weekend.
A little less exciting every year, but thank you.
No, right? It's like, I don't care anymore. How old are you? I don't care. I don't really know. I don't care.
I know. I don't know anymore either.
You know, I thank you. I wanted to thank you very much. And I want to thank the viewers that kind of plugged in some questions and especially, you know, the folks that are kind of coming back from injury and surgery. It's like, I'm very much in tune with, I'm hoping that they're coming back okay. And like you said, it's slow going and it can be frustrating, but it has to be a slow process and safe process, because we want to come back and we want to do this again. And when you're in it and your doctor says, okay, no, 6 weeks with no running, and you look at that 6 weeks like it's an eternity.
Yes. And then you have to mentally focus on something else for that 6 weeks with running as the end goal. That's like the light at the end of the tunnel. But you can use take that drive that you have for running and use it to get yourself in the best shape possible that you can, so that when you do start running, you feel good.
Right.
Focus on healing and doing what you can.
Right. So you can come back and run forever.
Yes.
Hopefully
That's the goal, man. That's the goal. I hope I'm 95 and running.
Right.
Wouldn't that be awesome?
I was thinking about that this morning. It was funny because you described, the whole effort thing. And after my really crummy run well, it was actually a really good run, but the Saturday's run with the snow coming down and it just felt gross. And this morning I got up, it's absolutely beautiful. And I'm like, this is an easy run. Why do I feel like that? And it really was that. It's that effort that we have to put into it. So it's like we have to listen to what our bodies are telling us, not what our watches are telling us.
Yes. And actually, I'm glad you said that, because one thought that just popped in my head is anytime you've also, as a runner coming back from injury or surgery or whatever, you have to distinguish between pain versus normal running discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
So, anytime you start venturing into that pain area, you need to stop. Walk. Yeah.
Right. There's no shame in walking. There's take that, right? Take that and allow yourself that break and chalk it up to just being a bad day. And, I can look at the last month personally and say, okay, well, I had a couple of good runs, but the rest of them, if it wasn't me, it was a perfect weather day and I screwed it up because I wasn't hydrated or whatever. Or it was just stupid weather, and we're not going to have that conversation again because it's thunderstorming actually. Right.
You're really good about that. You're really good about recognizing a bad run and why the run was bad. You're like, well, or like when you said your hip was bothering you, but it's probably because I haven't been doing this and I need to do that. So that's how we all need to look at it. When something goes wrong, or a run's not good, you kind of look at, okay, the whole picture and say why.
Right.
And sometimes it just sucks because it just sucks and we can't figure out why and we're not sure why. And that's okay. I never get worried if there's one or two bad runs back to back. Once we start getting to 3 or 4, then it's like, maybe there's something bigger that we need to look at. Right. But bad runs are normal and just part of the training. We're always looking for that great run, but we got to have the bad ones too to make the good ones feel that much better.
Well, and it's like everything else, we cannot put our training and our running in a vacuum. And this is something that I say a lot here. It's like our training doesn't exist in a vacuum, just like motherhood doesn't exist in a vacuum. And the YouTube channel doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's all part of a whole. And we have to take that into consideration when we do have a bad run or even a good run. Maybe we did everything right and we have a great run or a great race. But then, those days it's like, well, I was up late doing laundry last night and catching up on TV. So that's probably, and I overdressed and I'm still tired from Saturday. So it's this whole conglomeration of things that for a 4-mile easy run just didn't work out.
And what's interesting though, is we often will let a bad run define us, but we won't let a good run define us. We'll like poo-poo off the good run in a way. Like we might say, oh great, it was a great run, but we give so much weight to that bad run.
Mm-hmm.
So, make sure that you give that run a little less weight and you give the good, celebrate the good runs more, enjoy those more, and define yourself more by that versus, beating yourself up because of a bad run.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And on that note, I think that's a perfect note to end on. Right. I love it. I love it. Christine, thank you so much for being here, and I really enjoyed this. I know I talk with my hands. My mother challenged me actually to do a whole video with my hands tied behind my back, and I'm like,
oh my gosh, no! I like it too. I'm a talker with my hands. Just really
distracted. But Christine, thank you so much, and guys, head out there, go find your awesome. We'll see you next time. Until next time, happy running.